Let's join together in awakening the spirit that lives within all of us, that we may live more fully and know what it truly means to love and actually be ourselves. So, welcome. Let's explore our sexuality, authenticity, yoga, and human design, all of which intersect and meet at the Cross of Spirit. Hello and welcome back to the Cross of Spirit. I'm Rocky and really glad that you guys are back to hang out with me some more on this episode. I know it's been a few weeks since I've recorded an episode. Maybe it's been a few months. I'm not sure. I've really been in my own process and processing, integrating, assimilating, experiencing life. But things have sort of clicked back into place where I'm feeling motivated and interested, and ultimately I'm responding to showing back up to connect and communicate with you all. So thank you for being here, and thank you for your patience, I suppose, with me in showing up. On this episode today, I have one of my good friends, Katie Rudland, on the podcast. Katie is a coach, she's a mentor, she's a spiritual teacher. She's an incredible human, also born on the Cross of Spirit, also a 6'2". She's a manifesting generator, and she works with emotional authority. So one of the things I love about Katie is that she has such a beautiful level of self-awareness, especially around her emotional realm and her emotional energy. And for someone like me who's undefined emotionally and really takes in and feels the emotional energy of the world around me, Katie's ability to inform and to ride her emotional wave with a lot of awareness and grace is such a beautiful thing, not only to witness, but to feel. So we talk quite a lot about that, and as well as other things that we experience for and on our cross around sexuality and intimacy and human connection. Quite a conversation. It's a little bit of a longer episode, but Katie is somebody who I could just talk to for hours and hours and hours. So I hope you find value not just in what we talk about, but even in just what we role model as to role models in training, doing our best to stay up on the roof and turn all of our life experiences into healthy wisdom that we can share with each other and with you all. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Of course, comments, sharing, reviews, all that kind of stuff is certainly appreciated. And there'll be links in the show notes about where you can find Katie online and get immersed in her beautiful, rich, and powerful world. Enjoy. Hi.
Hey.
So you are my second guest on the podcast, as you know. It's really wonderful to get a chance just to spend time with you, as always, and let whoever listens to this be sort of a fly on the wall for whatever it is we get into today. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So we were talking a little bit before. Sometimes, we'll do like a little preamble before I hit record, and then I'm always like, "Oh, I should have just been recording that," because
Yeah.
that's often where the most honest, kind of transparent shares show up. But
Mm.
I was thinking about actually, I'm recording another interview or like a conversation with another friend of mine who's a 6'2" this weekend, and also a generator. And I find like we always have these conversations going into it of like, do we want to plan anything? Is there anything about? And there's this I think the role model energy in us is has that pressure to want to show up like polished and perfected and prepared. And my sacral's always like, like, let's just flow. Let's just see what happens. Let's be a little messy. Let's be a little
Mhm.
unkempt and unprepared and see what flows. So that's what we're all getting today.
Mm.
Doing well, feeling good.
Yeah, I'm feeling really, really good. I'm feeling, yeah, like my wave is chill right now. So I feel like I'm just in a nice kind of steady part of my wave, which, yeah, I feel really good. And I feel really in my heart at the moment. Like I feel I've been doing a lot of work around being in the heart, being more in the body, and just trying to be more present with that. Um, so yeah, I feel good. Thanks. How are you feeling? Are you feeling good?
I feel good being with you. Um, It's for if, in case I don't mention it in the intro, Katie is also a 6-2 cross of spirit generator, manifesting generator, and uh, emotionally defined. And so I think,
Mhm.
Katie, you're one of the few people that I get to talk with who has awareness of your emotional wave and can articulate and inform, when we converse, like where you are in your emotional journey. And um, it's so satisfying. Like it's so sweet to be able to get information about emotional energy that can be articulated, and not
Mm.
just that I'm experiencing and sensing and feeling, and sort of, I'm still doing my own deconditioning around my open solar plexus. Um, so it's always cool to get to hear from you, like, oh, you know where you are in your emotional energy. Um, and I also feel like you're one of the few people that I talk to that even when your wave is sort of down, so to speak,
Mm.
there's uh, there seems to be even a satisfaction for you in those more moments as well, which is so
Mm.
novel. When I first learned about emotional energy, I kind of thought, well, when it goes down, that's challenging, that's difficult, that's not a place you want to be. And then when it goes too high, that's like kind of manic and intense. Like so much of my life has been about trying to be around me to like be neutral, like get neutrality, like try to calm folks down or cheer folks up. Um, so it's really it's been a useful kind of education experience for me to feel how you navigate your emotional energy.
Mm. Yeah, should I share on that? Do you want me to share?
Sure, please.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something I'm definitely still practicing a lot, and I really notice when I don't inform, and I think that really comes down to just practice and like it's almost like a ritual, like really checking with myself, like where am I at right now, before I have this conversation or and at times it's not always that easy, because some things just are really in the now and yeah, it's kind of like instant. But yeah, for me, it's the wave is like an exploration. I see it as like a dance and it's this constant like movement, really. And I feel really going to the depths. I always feel like, well, you can find pearls in the bottom of the ocean, like that wisdom that's stored like really deep in those depths. To me, that's beautiful, And yes, of course, at times it's not always like nice, but I feel there's so much wisdom and opportunity like in those spaces, And it's yeah, I find it beautiful as much as it can be challenging too. And it is like definitely more so when I was younger, just like I hate life. Everything is awful. My life is terrible, like really like all of that. And then the high is just like, oh, rainbows and everything's wonderful, So yeah, I think as I get older, I guess it feels like becoming more emotionally mature, I guess, around my emotions and how they dance and where they go and really like be with them now. Whereas I think when I was younger, I was definitely trying to disconnect a lot more from my body and maybe not feel them as much in my body. Whereas now I'm like, I want to feel it. I want to feel this like feeling, whatever that may be. So yeah, it feels good to experience and explore how it changes all the time as well.
Mhm.
And kind of I'm still navigating it for sure. But it feels like a journey, It's like an adventure most of the time.
Oh, I know. I mean,
I'm sure on the other end of that too.
I mean, I think so. Just some context. Like Katie and I met in a Living Your Design course with Ben, who was the guest on the previous episode. So Ben was both of our teachers in that course, and um, I never thought much about my incarnation cross. It wasn't
Mm.
I came into human design eh, resonating with information about being a generator, and then kind of the notion of being a 6-2 was highlighted as maybe something special or worth paying attention to. And then it was kind of continuously through our time together in this course that actually Tom, who was the other teacher, our other teacher in this course, kind of kept highlighting how special it felt for him that there were two people in the course that were born under the cross of spirit. And I was like, oh, I guess there's something to investigate. There's something to explore more here. So of course, a lot of that contributed to why I wanted to start this podcast and the kind of conversations
Mm,
that I wanted to have. Um, and so it's wonderful to be able to have you on, as not just, another person interested in human design and who seems to have a lot of kind of similar. I was reading your bio this morning, like similar interest and sort of a similar journey of kind of synthesizing and weaving together all of these different practices to, help to awaken, heal, calibrate, activate the spirit. Um, so yes, it's a beautiful dance to get to explore emotional energy in the world, but to get to we've never actually been in each other's aura directly,
mm,
quite a lot of time together. Uh,
mm,
and so being able to have these conversations around emotional energy, which is, um, I'm sort of an addict for like emotional energy. My boyfriend is emotionally defined. Most of my relationships have been with folks with emotional definition. And I realize even, so much of my creativity as an artist, as a songwriter, over the years has been me playing in the emotional energy of
mm,
others.
mm,
And coming to understand that was really useful for me because I kind of wonder like why, people ask, uh, we talk a lot about feelings in the world and emotions, and folks would say to me all the time like, how do you feel about this? What's your feeling on this? Like, feel your way into this. And sometimes I have a lot of feelings and a lot of emotional energy to dance with and to play with and to create with, and at other times there's none, and I'm just
mm,
neutral. And it was really revelatory for me to recognize that a lot of the emotional energy that I experience and that I create with, not to say it's not my own, sometimes who knows whose is whose and what is,
mm,
what belongs to whom. But just to understand the dynamics of having the open emotional solar plexus and to be able to have a conversation about that with someone who's aware, who's also cross of spirit, and whose emotional wave is facilitated through part of the channel that I have, this 59
mhm.
sexuality and connectivity and sustainability and um, reproduction, um, is really fun. So I always love talking emotions with you because there's a lot of emotional energy out there in the world, especially right now. I mean,
Wow, yeah.
I'm feeling it big time with the current transits, the quarter that we're in. Um, and and it's been like a real crash course for me in in emotional wisdom and emotional maturity. I was sharing with you even this morning. I felt this real, big surge of emotional energy that then crashed, and it created a really cathartic release for me emotionally. And whenever that happens, it's like, but I'm not emotionally defined. Why am I crying? When it's like, you know, we all get to benefit from and ride this wave of emotion, whether you are one of the ones generating that wave or one of the ones riding on it and experiencing it.
Mm,
So I wonder, like, what are you feeling these days out in the world? And what is, I'm a splenic being, so I don't often acquire the same degree of depth around
mm,
my assessment of the world around me. Um, but there seems to be a lot of emotional energy flaring up in
mm.
all the spaces that I'm in. I wonder what you see as you look out into the state of things currently.
Yeah, yeah, I feel it a lot, and I'm seeing it a lot, and I feel I guess it's part of the mutation as well, the solar plexus. And I feel it's people are more and more becoming more and more awake and more aware of of their bodies and their emotions and what all these feelings are and everything. And I feel it's really learning, I feel, to get into tune with this instrument that we have, and learning how to tune it, what feels good, what sounds it makes, like, and kind of really navigating, I think, ourselves. And I see a real rise in a lot of people wanting to do that now and wanting to connect to themselves because I see how for me, like when I was younger, how disconnected I was at times, from myself, from feeling, from my body, and maybe not even knowing how to work with my emotions, how to regulate them, how to even feel them, like what they even feel like, what they are. And I guess really it feels like the education of it, and just, I guess, feeling what it is to, how would I describe it? Like understanding, but being able to navigate. And I really think it just comes down to education and like being taught, if we haven't been taught what emotions even really are and how to navigate them, it's just like that's where we're getting this like chaos and all of this energy because it's like coming crashing every now and then because it's either really, really stored and then all of a sudden something triggers it to like and we don't know what to do with it, we don't know how to respond to it, or we don't know how to feel it, or all of these things. So I feel it's like education. And actually with most education, like we were taught in the human design, it's like mastering the basics, and I think that really comes to ourselves and how we can master ourselves and get to know who we are and how we operate really. And I feel that is continuously coming back to me, like reconnecting, like feeling, like listening, tuning inwards, like my intuition. And I guess that for me feels a strong part of like the journey with spirit is that kind of connection to spirit and that intuition and that kind of inner truth really. um So I don't really know if that answered your question, but I was just journeying with that a little bit. But yeah, I guess I feel I feel strongly like this year feels a really potent year for kind of being in the body and like being inwards and just really listening to within, like journeying within ourselves.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel there's not been a lot of education on that, maybe.
Mhm.
So I feel that's why there's lots of lots of it going on in the outside world.
That was a beautifully, like, emotive answer as well. I mean, because something that I've been contemplating with emotional energy, if you look at the body graph, like, everything that kinda goes up the left side of the chart kinda move or a lot of it moves through the spleen. It's a lot about
Mm,
self-actualization. It's a lot about kind of existential, like, in the moment, logical circuitry. So,
mhm,
patterns and survival and understanding, the step by step processes to lead to self actualization. And everything up the right side of the chart, a lot of it goes through the solar plexus, and it's much more kind of in flow and it's in flux um, and it's a lot about emotional alignment, which takes time.
mm,
Emotional alignment is not something that necessarily happens in the moment. It's something that happens over time, and um, thinking about the way that we, even like a quantum level, the way that we measure
mhm,
particles. So you can't
mhm,
measure a particle's location and its movement at the same time. The moment you
mhm,
try to like pinpoint where it is, it actually kind of stops the movement and it becomes
mhm,
localized. Whereas if you can experience the movement, the motion of the particle, then that allows it to continue to be in movement. And so like the emotional wave, like while it's wonderful to inform where you are in your emotional journey. It's high, it's
Mm,
low, it's
mm,
neutral. It's never really in one fixed place. It's always moving,
mhm,
unless you're trying
mhm,
to kind of, uh, they say, like, if you're what I've noticed is that when I'm around folks that are trying to hold their wave at a high point,
mm,
when they're trying to like analyze and figure out why the wave is low and how to get it to move, it actually slows down the movement of the wave, because you're like trying to amend it or fix it or analyze it or judge it or discern where it is. Whereas like just being able to experience the movement of all of it,
mhm,
um, it, it's harder to pinpoint, right? Because you're not really pinpointing it, you're dancing on it. And
mm,
how the emotional energy has felt for me as I've really been experiencing, there's, kind of nerding out on like the nuances of the chart, but this collective wave circuit has really been amplified from like passion energy to
mhm,
exploration energy, this restlessness to have a new experience, to dream new dreams, and then, find ways to allow those dreams to manifest, on the physical plane.
mm,
It's felt it's felt intense.
mm,
And I'm aware of what I'm aware of, in terms of emotional energy. But just in the conversations I've been having with people, there seems to be this contrast is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I think, between the dreams that we're starting to feel collectively about the type of world we want to live in, and maybe not settling for less than what we deserve, but recognizing that, we deserve to uh, live good lives. We deserve to be who we came here to be. We deserve to tap and harness our power. We deserve to have time to rest and restore and restock and replenish our energy. And as we kind of like feel that contrast between the way that life seems to be on the material plane versus how we experience it could be, more
mm,
our dream energy or our imaginative energy, or just our recognition of who it is we came here to be. That divide seems to be getting bigger and bigger. And it's creating this like restlessness, clinging fire, this desire energy of like, you know, and then of course like the how do I bridge that gap between the way things are and the way that I would like things to be? And I think if you don't understand that emotional energy is not really meant to be acted upon in the moment, it's something that you kind of have to feel and dream and dance and play with, which is kind of what you're
mm,
sharing.
mm,
Uh, it becomes this really, for it stokes this anxiety for me of like, okay, how do I make this happen now? And it's
mm.
like have it both ways. You can't act on the emotional energy in the now
Mm,
necessarily. It's really about letting yourself feel.
mm. Yeah, can I share on that?
Use,
Yeah, I think that that's definitely been one of the definitely the start of human design was one of the challenges and still is, because from that not self, you it's so strong once you realize that you've acted before, like for me being emotional, like before I've been on that wave, and I know it as well. And I'm like, I can feel this doesn't feel, in harmony, or it doesn't resonate as much now. But I think that's such a practice for anyone that's emotional is, my automatic thing is usually like sleep on it, or just I don't know, the more I feel I getting more and more in tune, I feel it's the time length isn't as long maybe now as what it used to be. Um, but I feel that you can really tell, like I can really tell when I'm on a high, I really am aware of it. And I can really tell when, yeah, I'm responding because I really wanna respond, because I'm, like, on this high and I'm like, "Yeah, that's amazing. I wanna do that," or whatever. But then I know once I come down from that, I'm like, "Okay, do I wanna do it now? Like, does it still feel good?" And that provides such gold for me, but it is a challenge because yeah, it's especially on the other side of that, maybe others want it in the now and all of that, so it's like but I think it's just again, it's just coming back to that practice of you and recognizing how it works for you and just being okay with that. And then I feel that that energy is then received and it's come from the right space within you. And so then I feel that creates, I don't know, more harmony, within me. It creates more harmony within me. Um, but it takes a lot of practice, I think. And I think that's the one thing with all of this is just the practice, like just consistent practice. I feel it's like a ritual and it's just this constantly coming back to like, okay, like, um, yeah, so that feels potent for me in terms of really recognizing my wave and like, and yeah, when I'm on the down as well, and I'm like, I don't always even want to talk to anyone, or just like sometimes I just want to be in the depths, but I love being in the depths too, so it's like I love being up here, but I also love being down there. So I really do love both of them. And they are really extreme at times, like I can literally be on the floor like in so much like crying, like pain, like grief, like all of this stuff, just like like my world is gonna end. But I also feel this is kind of the energy of this like rise of the sleeping phoenix, because it's like he has to die before he takes flight again. And I do feel like that's not always by any means with the wave, but I do feel like I go on that journey a lot and I feel like I'm constantly just on this like death, rebirth, like throughout life, really. And I think being a woman as well and having bleeds, that I go through that cycle with that, like with the moon, with my bleed, and then with this. And so I do feel like it's a very, yeah, constant journey in terms of that, which I really enjoy. But at times it can definitely be a lot. For sure. For
Mhm.
sure. Yeah.
Well, I would love to hear a bit from you. We talked a little bit beforehand about discussing some of the work that you've done around sexuality, sexual healing, and trauma. And really more broadly, at the very first episode of this podcast, I spent some time kind of just contemplating what cross of spirit means to me at this level of my understanding. Of course it's set off in the human design world that like your incarnation cross is not something that you're supposed to like figure out and then like use as an assignment, but really it's something that you are designed to kind of notice showing up in
Mm.
your life, or notice as sort of the theme of your life as you engage in following your strategy and your authority. And I certainly, it's interesting. I'll have those moments where I'm like, oh, okay, my incarnation cross. Like if I kind of keynote the four gates of my cross, like there's something here about sexuality, intimacy, abundance and prosperity, or faith, and my sharing my gifts, my with enthusiasm, and self-actualizing by kind of following the details that lead to my satisfaction. But, that's just sort of who knows how much of that's just my mind kind of getting in there, like figure it out. That really seems to be the theme for me right at this moment in my life is recognizing how much my mind really wants to get in there and play an active role in like speeding up my deconditioning process. And what I'm confronting right now, just as an aside, is like it seems like my deconditioning kind of takes on themes based on my centers. I spent, and I'm sure it's recursive, but there was a large focus on my open solar plexus for a while, and then a pretty large focus on my open throat for a while. Most recently, there was a big focus on my open will center, and it seems like it's my open head and ajna's turn right now. Confront a lot of fear, a lot of the
Mm.
really not knowing. Like I really don't know at this point, like what's going to happen. And I've never really known, but I've spent so much time trying to sort and organize everything in my life so that I could feel this sense of certainty that I'll be taken care of and that I have all my ducks in a row and I have all the answers to the questions and blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
So, I've been saying for a while that
Hmm.
I'm on this kind of slow motion trust fall into my sacral, and it's felt a little scary, but also kind of satisfying and relieving to do that.
Hmm.
But now comes the fear. And
Mm.
I've heard many conversations or recordings of Ross saying that for every generator, you reach this point where you encounter fear, uh,
Hmm.
that you really don't know what's going to happen. So I just set up like 3 or 4 different. My open throat is rolling right now, but I guess I'm curious as you kind of engage in this process, in this experiment. Um, what are you noticing about our incarnation cross of spirit? How has that always shown up in your life? How are you finding it showing up in your life now? And I guess what role does the work that you're about, or your interest in the work that you're about, play in sort of embodying or exemplifying
Mm.
all these different themes that we're about?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like I remember, I think I shared it with you when I said, when I first had my human design done, it was with a guy, Richard, from where I live. He's a 4/6 project spleen, no, self-projected projector. And he kind of like created this amazing kind of writing piece into like all of my channels, all of my things into like this kind of paragraph. And it was really, really helpful at the time because actually for me, when I first had my human design, the cross was really prominent for me actually, and it was quite strong.
Mhm.
Um, and so what was around that for me and has been, I guess, a theme is this feeling of yeah, intimacy and emotional freedom, like emotional awareness, emotional freedom, like, and that's what I feel I'm really working with and embodying, and that's what I'm also really helping teach and guide others with, is this feeling of, and I guess that comes also into that freedom of the spirit, it's creating that freedom within, building that like trust, that faith in spirit, and having that, I guess, inner standing of that feeling of space. Because I feel as I've been on this path in this sense for a while, like I have so much more space now in my body. And so I feel like it can respond so much easier, and it's so much more free in here to like move and play and I guess dance with energy and frequency and all of that stuff. And so I feel this is something I'm really working with myself and embodying and love to teach. And I think, I guess the channel, like cross of spirit, like if you think about it in, yeah, like human design, it's, what is it? Love, intimacy, like food, and these kind of create that's the spirit to be able to soar. And so for me as well, being a left angle, I feel that's really true for me in terms of like, yeah, when I'm in a relationship and I'm in that energy, like I do feel like it creates a lot of satisfaction and fulfillment for me, and it's kind of that creates like a ripple effect for me. Um, and I would say in terms of like the love part, like I'm definitely on a massive journey to love and to really live from the heart. And I've been doing so much heart work, it feels recently. I don't know if you've done the Venus sequence. Have you done that?
With the Gene Keys,
Yeah.
I started it. I
Okay.
I guess, you know, maybe half through. And I really took up I started it around the same time I started human design, or I found
Uh-huh.
I've really been taking my time. So I'm sure
Mm.
I'll circle back around to it. I think kind of the more, I mean, I'm not really sure how to describe the difference between human design and gene keys, but
Mm.
human design appealed to my more kind of splenic, yeah,
Mhm.
aspects of like, okay, here's kind of the mechanics and here's the process. And Gene Keys, felt more kind of an invitation into um, just observation and reflection and contemplation. So
Mm.
Each time I pick that back up again.
Yeah, so that's been something. So yeah, my human design teacher, Richard here, he's been, yeah, sharing quite a bit with me in terms of, the 55 and the 59-6 and some recordings. And he's given me the Gene Keys book, and I'm really interested in reading that because how it guides you through from the shadow and to the gift. And so that feels really potent for me at the moment. But in terms of, I would say, like, as a whole in my life and journey with this cross, for me, I've always felt really connected to spirit, like from a very young age. And how that's shown up is shown up in different forms. But really, I would say at the core of it is like this faith and this trust in spirit. That's how it comes to me. And I feel like with that journey, it's kind of, with the deconditioning of human design and everything else and in life, I feel it's this constant, like, when you really hit rock bottom, like you're really like, you're down there, especially with the wave, I'm right down there, and I'm just like, yeah, like what now? And then there's just this, like, I guess it's like the glistening of the light, but it's just like there's always this faith and this trust in spirit for me. And I think that's just always been so strong in terms of like guiding me. And it's what I always come back to. And I guess that's within me. And then in terms of like the abundance, I feel, well, they say this in the human design, but that abundance is I've forgotten what it says now,
Matter of
a
spirit.
question of one's spirit. Yeah. So I feel the more connected to spirit, the more abundant you are. And I just feel like part of that connecting to spirit for me is a lot of purification. I think with my open spleen and that 1222 as well, it's like this purifying journey, like journey of purification for me. And like clearing out, cleansing, like I do a lot of this a lot of the time on all levels, like emotional, physical, spiritual. Um, And then in terms of like intimacy and sexuality, like it's been a real journey for me, from a young age, I would say. Like I've always been really aware of like my sexual energy, and really didn't know how to use it, and how I was brought up, in terms of what sexuality was and how it was taught in schools, and then pornography and all of these things. Like it's been a real journey for me because I've gone through this amazing journey, actually. In fact, like I've had sexual trauma and abuse from a young age as a child, teenager, adult. And so I've really had to work with that a lot, because a lot of that made me disconnect from myself, because I didn't want to feel these feelings, or I didn't want to feel anything because I was scared, I was afraid. So it took me on a real journey, and then went through a lot of healing, spent a lot of years working with a lot of sexual trauma healing, and then like last year just went through this like absolute liberation of like bliss and pleasure. And it's just like, I think that's what that feeling makes everything like, oh, okay, like this is why you're doing this work, because once you experience that, it's like, wow, like others deserve to feel this, others deserve to experience this feeling, and work through the pain and the suffering and all of the grief and everything to actually have this enjoyment, this pleasure, and explore this sexuality in a really healthy way. And I think I had to relearn so much about what sexuality was, and what it meant to me, and how I've experienced it in my life in so many different forms, and relearn, unlearn loads, and then relearn, like through, I did a lot of Tantra and Kundalini, and the sacredness of sexuality, the sacredness of the womb, and like all of this work. And it completely shifted so much for me in terms of how that exploration has happened. And doing really work from the heart space. I think that's probably really what it comes down to, is doing it from that space,
Mhm.
because it's such a different energy. It's such a different I don't even know how to describe it, but like there's not a word there, but it's from the heart. Like it to me, it can't be more pure, than to come from that space. So yeah, I feel this is really what I want to share and teach others is to be able to come through that, and come through abuse and trauma in that area and be able to actually go through the healing and then come out the other end as such, and actually have this amazing, beautiful experience in such a harmonious way and from the heart. Like I was like, this was like my rebirth. I was like, wow, like if I was to die tomorrow, I would be happy because this has just changed my life in so many ways I can't describe. It was an absolute like rebirth of all rebirths. It was like I lost my virginity all over again at 34 in the most beautiful, like healing, loving, like heart space way. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot there, and I I relate to a lot of that in my own way. I feel the topic of sexuality is so rich and so complex and so dynamic for all of us.
Mhm.
And I'm aware of what a large theme it's bound to be for you and I both as um with our incarnation cross and also in the sixth line. There's a lot.
Mhm.
The sort of prophecy shares that there's a tremendous amount of mutative pressure going on right now, specifically on the 59-6, as
Mhm.
sort of role model archetypes of sexuality and how it is that we are shifting or changing or evolving in the ways that we connect and even
Mhm.
function, I think, of sexual energy and that kind of the genetic imperative to reproduce and to create more and to create sustainability through our connections and through our reproduction.
Mm.
It's might be a subject for like another
Yeah.
talk.
I think we could talk for about 2 hours on that.
And I'm sure too our experiences are going to have a commonality between them, just kind of archetype.
Mhm.
But also, I'm a gay man. You're, as far as I know, you're a cis hetero woman, and is that correct? Do I have
Yeah,
the
yeah, like, it's one of those where I've definitely, explored, for sure, but, yeah, yeah.
and of course, how our sexuality is also going to express, and also how we're going to be projected upon as sexual beings is going to be different in the ways that it is.
Mhm.
But there's I don't know that I've specifically experienced or endured what I would call sexual trauma from kind of the outside world. Um, and yet, my relationship with my sexual energy has been, I mean, I don't even know how, I've never really talked about it publicly in this way, so I don't necessarily have the words for it. But, I've been thinking a lot lately about what it means to be a gay man and really kind of the biological imperative to reproduce. Obviously
Mhm.
it's there, it exists within us as
Mhm.
humans. um but to find ways to connect with my sexual energy, not necessarily to create offspring, but
Yeah.
for the satisfaction of it, but also to engage with it in a way that is sustainable, that is generative in some way. It's not depleting. It doesn't.
Mhm.
It's not. I think for many years, I'll just share that. Like, I think I used sex um, as a way to combat just frustration. You know, when uh,
Mhm.
when we're not operating correctly as ourselves, or when we're trying to prove ourselves in the world in some way, or seeking validation, or trying to understand who it is we are in our communities, or what our kind of how to tap into and harness our power. um
Mm.
it's very easy to use sex, or to crave sex as sort of relief from
Mhm.
the frustration of being misaligned. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I mean, like, there's also such thing as like sexual frustration. There are times that we just crave connection and crave that intimacy. Um, but in my community especially, there's I think there's a lot of confused, indulgent, unsustainable relationship with sex, and I am, uh, you know, this is applied to me very, very much so. So I'm not kind of pointing my finger at anybody outside of myself, but I've been undergoing my own sort of, I'll say, like, sexual revolution in
Mhm.
how I consider and think about the nature of connection and intimacy. And actually, like, learning human design was really, I think, probably the first thing that really stood out for me when I started learning about my design was the impact of my aura. I never really recognized
Mm.
how penetrating, and penetrated my aura is, you know, to the world around me, and from the world around me. And how, I always had a sense of, like, we get around each other energetically, and there's kind of like there's this dance that we do with each other. But
Mhm.
really, it's through understanding my design, like seeing, okay, here are the ways in which, like, my aura reaches out, especially as the generator with the 59. Like, my aura is like kind of reaching out to everybody and saying, like, who wants to
Mm.
connect? Who wants to connect? Who wants to connect? And, it's the folks that are able to kind of receive that, or meet that, or respond to that, that I can form some type of intimacy with. But I think in the past, because I wasn't aware of
Mhm.
necessarily the impact of my aura, I felt like I needed to then go and assert and initiate and, like, find that connection at a physical level with, certainly in my third line phase, like, with I was just
Everyone.
I would just literally would say, I'm just open.
Yeah.
I came out when I was about 19, 20, because I was like,
Okay.
you know, I, d- I don't know that I want to limit or even say who it is I'm open, or I'm just open. I just want to explore and learn, trial and error. I just want to
Mhm.
learn through experience. And of course, that's been a pretty significant, evolution and then shift. Six light phase where I'm like way more discerning about,
Yeah, who
uh,
you're sharing that with.
but it's still there. And
Mm.
I think coming to recognize that it's certainly in the shadow, there is that, like, craving that I have for, like, sexual diversity, um, or even just, like, diversity of connection. For years, I thought, am I, like, polyamorous? Like, how does this,
Mhm.
what actually is my sexual preference here, or my relationship preference? Because I seem to have this capacity to connect very deeply with a lot of people. Um, and it was really useful for me to hear, or um, to recognize that it's not so much that I, like, fall in love with so many different people. It's that I can really fall in love with the connection that I can have
Mm.
with
Mm.
whoever is, like, a match to the vibe that I'm down to explore. Um,
Mm.
so, yeah, I guess I don't really know that I have a question there. As far as it's just my share of, like, kind of how I'm recognizing kind of the spectrum of possibility of how my sexual energy can manifest. It can certainly, in the past, and not even that distant past, it can be very
Mhm.
indulgent. It can be, sometimes reckless. It can be,
Mhm.
um, you know, in my community, there's quite a lot of, like, substance abuse that is connected with how we harness and tap our, like, sexual vitality, or lack thereof.
Mhm.
And so I'm happy to share more, but I'm undergoing my own sort of reconfiguration and healing around, my sexual energy, and how
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of harness that, not just through sex, but
Mhm.
also through my business, through my work, through the way I connect with people, through my aura, and how I recognize my capacity to kind of touch everybody that I walk past, also being left angle and moving out into the world. So
Mhm.
I don't have any, I don't have anything really concrete to land on at this point, but it's certainly been a big, um, it's probably the biggest theme in my life that I've been
Mm,
exploring as long as I can remember.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, I hear you and I feel you on that because yeah, it seems to just yeah, be such a potent part of my life in so many ways. And it feels it feels much more harmonious now. Like I feel I think it just comes with the awareness of it really. Um but yeah, like I I guess now for me, so much of it for me comes through dancing and working with that life force energy. And I think or feel that I guess where I've had I want to have more understanding, I guess, with human design is how it is in human design, you know, because I've done a lot of tantra work, but that's really working with the seven center, you know, and I want to understand more on a human design perspective in terms of how sexual energy works on a human design perspective, I guess. I'm quite interested in that. And I feel that's somewhere I really want to dive into more. Um, because in Tantra, it's very much about storing the ujas and not releasing that, you know, life force energy. But I'm sure and well, I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure. But like I feel in human design there's something around, you know, that energy is there to be generated, right? To be used. So yeah, I'm intrigued about that and how that correlates or doesn't ultimately. Um, yeah, because that does interest me quite a lot in terms of that. But
Can
yeah,
I?
I feel yes, please.
So it's it's been really useful for me to understand. I mean, there's so much in human design. I keep saying like this is the most interesting part of, um, but understanding the difference between having kind of a defined or an undefined sacral and how that impacts your sexual expression. You know,
Mm,
so one of the ways I've heard this described is that, you know, when you have a defined sacral, as we both do, that we
mhm,
have more of a fixed sexual energy.
mm,
You know, meaning
mhm,
like the way that our sexual energy expresses or activates or is stimulated
mm,
is going to be in response
mhm,
to, you know, certain factors, you know, certain
mhm,
our environment. Whereas when you have an open sacral, your sexual energy is going to be more variable. I would always have this experience like going out, you know, in gay world, like going out to these parties or these clubs, and I could walk into a space and, you know, there might be tons of attractive, like compelling, beautiful guys there, but you know, it takes a very certain kind of connection to kind of activate me or a certain vibe
mhm,
that I can form with
mm,
someone to feel like,
mhm,
oh, that now I can feel my sexual energy starting to flow. And
mm,
or whatever that looks like, whether that's like overtly like, okay, now I'm gonna like go into the dark room and like have some experience at this club, or if it's just like I'm vibing with somebody, you know.
mhm,
Um, Versus I would see these guys that would go out and they could be, like, dead asleep, you know, and they're like, "Oh, I'm getting like, okay, we're gonna go out to the club," and they kind of they get dressed and and the second they show up there, they're just, like, horny to the max, and they're like
mhm,
you know, they're just so stimulated, and I would be like,
mhm,
you know, interestingly, like, for many years, I thought, like, maybe there's something wrong with me, especially as I started to go up on the roof where I'm like, is there something wrong with my sexual energy? Because I'm not stimulated by environments that
mm,
are sexual in nature, you know, and in my I hesitate to use the word gay community. It's like saying straight community. Like I don't know what that means, but it's a common thing in our community. I mean, like the kind of hedonism of gay life and how it is we explore, you know, and define, you know, what sex is to us. There's not a lot of boundaries there, and so
mhm,
you know, there's a lot of guys that they love going to, you know, sex parties or even like
mhm,
tantra workshops if you're more on the kind of, you know, conscious
mhm,
mindful side of things. Um, and the environment in and of itself is incredibly enticing
Mhm.
and that's not often my experience. Like for me, it's usually
Mhm.
one-on-one, or it's usually like
Mhm.
it's a connection that I'm having with someone that is there's some juice there, and I'm responding to it, and my energy's up.
Mhm.
So I think for many years I thought maybe there's something wrong with me because I'm not like turned on by just being around
Mhm.
sexual energy or even just, vibrant life force energy. So coming to recognize that it's like, oh no, in many instances, those individuals that are being activated by my life force energy. Like it's me as a sacral being that's bringing contributing to
Mhm.
this field of energy that others get to kind of play with and dance on and initiate or guide or whatever or reflect back. uh uh so I've become more discerning, I think, and also let myself off the hook more about like
Mhm.
I can't force myself to to fill in the blank, like to get active. I I It's okay for me to wait
Mm.
for something to stimulate me um sexually. Does that all make sense what I'm sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I share on it?
Yeah,
What
please.
came through is I feel, and maybe that you feel this is true for you being a six, but I feel as you kind of go through that first phase, like for me, it was, yeah, it wasn't so much about this maybe soulmate connection, it was more just this sexual energy and just exploring it and feeling it and like, yeah, just experimenting so much. And I feel as I've got older, it's now like there really has to be that like soulmate energy with that person I'm connecting with intimately in that way.
Mm,
And I don't know, maybe if that plays into that, I don't know what age that was and you were sharing about that, but that feels really strong for me now, and it's true, and yeah, I wanna go to the depths, because that's what I enjoy and exploring, and for me, if it's not on that level of soulmate level, like, I just can't. It's just like I think that goes with the 59-6, it's either open or it's closed, and it's like, to me, that's like when it just closes and it's like on
mm,
the surface, I'm just like, I can't
mhm,
now, and, yeah, that feels really, really strong for me.
mhm,
Don't know, does that resonate with you?
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I mean, I find that to be true, like certainly about the connections that I make sexually and
Mhm.
otherwise, but almost like with everything. Like I just
Mhm.
and I think that's been the biggest. That's been one. It's been
One of
one of the
one of all those.
well, I talk to a lot of six lines that will say things like, "I don't know what's wrong with their, in their on the roof phase," and maybe they're not necessarily aware of it. But speaking with someone recently, it was like, "I think I need to go to the doctor. Like, there's something wrong with me. Like, I just don't have, like, there's something off with my energy. I don't have energy like I used to." Um,
Mm.
and I really relate to that because it really feels like certainly going through um my first life phase, I had a lot of like resilient extra energy to like out there and
Just
see.
everywhere.
Yeah, I had a lot of I had a lot of trial and error energy to play with. And
Mhm.
the irony, of course, is at the time I was so obsessed with like finding the one and figuring out my thing and getting there, like that urgency that's so common for us. At
Mhm.
lines of like, okay, I know I'm meant to be like the role model. I like I should achieve that by age 21. Like I literally thought I have my life figured out by then. Um, so now, now that I'm on the roof, I feel like the amount of energy, like I have a very specific finite amount of energy every day. And if I use that energy on the wrong things, I'm I'm done. Like I'm depleted. Like I just
Mm.
I don't have it. And I think, for several years as I made this transition from third to sixth line, I felt that naturally. And as a result, I can maybe share more on this on another episode, but like I became addicted to like certain substances and I mean I still like I drink my coffee every day, but like I became addicted to certain substances that allowed me to continue to operate at a certain level that I thought I needed to in order to continue to create through like willpower and like mind.
Mhm.
And so as I've been settling into my sacral and really paying attention to like what do I have the available energy for, and what I'm responding to here is this idea of like soulmate, like the thing I'm saying
Mm.
to, it
Mhm.
needs to feel like this is a connection. This is like my soul has an opportunity to mate with the soul or the spirit of this other
Mm.
person or this project or this endeavor or this creation. And if there's not that like soul resonance of like, uh-huh,
Mm.
it's a no. And it's scary.
Mm.
It's scary for me,
Mm.
I'll be honest, because
Mm.
a lot of what I've created in my life has, has been imbued with spirit, but a lot of it hasn't.
Mm.
Uh, a lot of it's been created through sheer will. And I find that
Mm.
those things that I sort of, whether they be they connections or creations or pursuits, if they're not a mate for my soul at some level, they seem to be falling away. And that's exciting at a certain level and terrifying at another level because, if you've come to depend on some of those connections, at least at a mental level,
Mm.
they start to go away. There's like, then my spleen starts like that like Ferris. That makes sense. So I feel
Mhm.
like it's true of my relationship. Um, and I really feel like, yeah, I mean, my relationship with my partner is beautiful, and like he's a sixth line in his third line phase. So we have this interesting like soulmate connection that, that there's again, that's another episode, um but I feel like I have that between my partner and my dog and my home. Like, okay, I've landed in
Mm.
that place that feels like, okay, this is nourishing and correct for my spirit. Um, and I still have that same desire to create diverse connections and you know diverse projects and creations, but it's the margin of what actually feels right is becoming slimmer and slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. And if I step outside of that even a little bit, um, I just got back from Mexico. I was traveling, and I went to this music festival. It was really beautiful, like incredible community and a lot of magic, queer magic there. But still, I mean, you're kind of pushing the limits of like sleep and rest, and there's a lot of people that you're, you know, connecting with, um and like coming home from that. I mean, you were sharing before we recorded, but coming home from that, like, and I still got adequate sleep every day. Like, it wasn't like I was going so hard, but there was about 24 hours where I had to sleep for like 24 hours on and off, but like I've never slept so hard and so long in my life. And it's like,
Mm.
I used to be able to do this even a couple of years ago. I could do this and it was no big deal, but it just feels like the more I'm getting calibrated to like what's truly correct for me and what is not.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
it's like my body really needs a lot of rest and a lot of downtime to just kind of wait and recharge and yeah, I'm rambling as per usual, but soulmates. Right now my soul
No,
is to mate with itself.
yeah.
Chill.
Mm.
You were sharing a little bit earlier about the was it an aura cleansing or
Yeah, oral transformation. Um, so I met this lady last year in Spain on a really like divine timing, obviously meant to meet her last year. And she started talking about this oral transformation, and it actually came out the same year as human design, which is really interesting. And so she spoke a bit on it, and that was that really. And then I did a few of her workshops, and it just really resonated with me. And I've not actually, I guess, received any kind of work for a little while, and because nothing's really like resonated with me for a while. So, but this kept coming through really strongly, and I was just like, I really liked her energy. She's a projector, and I was like, this feels really good for me. And you shared earlier about like the mind, and I feel there's, I'm still really working with this, like coming out of the mind and being more in the body and more in the heart space. And I guess with this work, it felt very grounding and very like about being in the body. So it just felt really good to me. And so basically it works with your aura, and it basically activates like an influx of new timeline energy. So like indigo crystal aura. So you're working with your aura to this energy. So I had mine in two parts, because it's about 4.5 hours, the session. So it's quite a lot of work, and you're doing quite a lot of work yourself in it. And this is why I also like shared with you earlier how I slept so much this week as well, like long naps and just so much sleep. But I was just, my body just needed it. But it basically reinforces the impact. I've got it written down here. Reinforces the impact of the interface between your individual energy field and physical reality. So it releases like and this actually happened like in a massive visualization for me, like it releases like this, a clear stream of everything that you've been holding on. So you really learn how to work with, have you done cord cutting and stuff before? Like,
Cord
have you
cutting?
done any? Yeah. So it's a really, I feel aura transformation is a much more harmonious and heart loving way of not just cutting the cord and being like, it's about learning how to retrieve your energy from others and give theirs back, basically. And it's all about like really filling into you and filling you up. And it's amazing. And it can take up to about 9 months to fully be in the new crystal aura. And so it's a big integration embodiment kind of process. And I just felt like it was so how it does is she sits by your ankles and she's doing all the work through the feet. And that to me feels really grounding. And it just, I don't know, I feel I'm naturally very quite high, and with spirit as well. And just, I don't know, I feel like I'm quite high a lot of the time. So for me, it really feels good to be brought down a lot and be more earth and more in the body kind of energy. And so it just, well, I feel like it's provided so much clarity for me, and really a lot of awareness around how much I was just giving out my energy, just so much, like just, yeah, just so much. And just getting into a practice now of how to work with my aura. Um, and, she says like you'll naturally just have more like stronger boundaries, and actually maybe you won't be used to them, or like it's like playing with this new energy, this new feeling, and navigating that as well. But it feels different already. Like, I don't know, I feel like my eyes are brighter and like just certain things. But her pictures and the videos and stuff she's shared is just really, really amazing. It's really powerful work. And it just felt really aligned with human design, the fact that it came out the same year, working with the aura. Yeah, it just really, really resonated with me. And I would really love to bring it into some sort of, I don't know, like human design or a transformation kind of retreat workshop thing at some point. We'll see. But I think the two, correlate so well together. And I wish I could share more on it, but I don't feel like I have enough knowledge to really share, like, as much about it right now, because it's just, yeah, it's really early days for me learning about it and having it done ultimately. But yeah, I can share more on that with you if you want to hear more about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I, it sounds fascinating, and this is like right up my alley of the kind of things that intrigue me. Um, I'll share that. Go, can I respond to that?
Absolutely.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is like, your your aura is likely what's gonna be sharing the most about it. It's like one
Mm.
of the first things I heard, I believe it was from Richard Beaumont about human design, or like kind of one of the things to remember is that, like, your aura is what does most of the talking for you. It's one of the ironies for me about being a teacher and being so kind of like long-winded in the way that I move energy around with my open throat, trying to kind of part of what's being communicated. But there is such a relief in recognizing, like, when I walk into a room, whether I say anything or not, like, my aura is communicating on my behalf.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
I'll be honest, like, sometimes there's a part of me that's like, "Oh, do I make way too much of all of this healing, transformative work in terms of, what I write about or what I teach or what I share or what I try to facilitate?" Like, I think it's very much a six line thing too, to take our take our life purpose very seriously.
Yeah.
Want to, make sure, like, well, the fear of the sixth line, from my understanding and from my experience, is like the fear of not fulfilling our purpose. And like the irony is that, like, our purpose is just to be ourselves and to be authentic. And
Mm.
it's not like a job. It's not like something
Mm.
to do. It's like something we're here to be. Um,
Mm.
and 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 that the way that we best teach that is just through example. And it's not I'm like affirming this to myself, like, it's not showing people how to be like a perfect human, like
Mhm.
showing people who I am
Mhm.
is like, beautifully and chaotically put together and also a mess. And you
Mhm.
know and that, like, oftentimes many of the most impactful moments that people have seemingly had from me have been through me disclosing or sharing or being transparent about, like,
Whatever.
whatever. Yeah. Talk about sexuality, like, it was really interesting when I started sharing more of my sexuality, my sexual expression publicly, online.
Mhm.
But I did my yoga training when I was 20, and I think at some level I felt, okay, if I go through this teacher training and I become a yoga teacher, like, that'll keep me accountable to, like, being some version of, like, a perfect masterful human. I'm teaching other people these like, I had all this distorted
Mhm.
idea about what yoga was, or what it meant to be, like, an embodied master. Um, and over the years, it created this, like, real pressure for me of, like, oh, I have to, like, hide and boundary all of my flaws, or, like, find outlets for my authenticity to express in other spaces because it's not safe for me to share them publicly. And when I just
Mhm.
started kind of, like, saying, "Well, I'm this and I'm this. I'm also a sexual being. I'm also, like, you know, I'm all these things that I am. Who knows what they are, but, like, I'm just gonna show you all the different aspects of who I am." That seemed to be way more inspiring and impactful for people than
Mhm.
trying to get out in front of it as, like, this, thought leader or healer or facilitator or whatever. So,
Yeah.
uh, sometimes I have this notion, this thought, or this, consider the possibility that, like, I really don't know what's gonna happen as I continue to follow my sacral. Like, I may end up becoming like a waiter, works at a restaurant and plays music on the weekends, and like, who knows?
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
I think I'll always be a healer in a sense, because I think the more that I tune to the frequency of my authenticity and to my aura, and allow my aura to really
Mm.
be a reflection of, like, all these archetypal energies that I have
Mhm.
operating at a high level or at an honest level, like, stepping into my aura hopefully will be a transformative experience.
Mhm.
So I celebrate any and all aura cleansing, reconfiguring transformation that you undergo. I'm sure whether you can talk about it or speak to it, it'll be felt by everyone.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that, and yeah, I think that's part of my journey with, like, the channel of openness, and and that purity with that, that always feels like, to me, it's like this redefining and like retuning and this all the R's, like, um and I think with the open spleen, like I said before, I think it just, for me, it's like a journey of letting go and cleansing. And I think, like you shared as well, is yeah, like how prominent and potent it is of like the old kind of really, really just going, and like what that can bring up as well. Like I really feel that, and I really resonate with you when you said that, because yeah, that's come through a lot for me. And actually, some of that has come through having to voice, and use my throat a lot more, and speak and say what maybe just doesn't feel right anymore, and just be okay with that, and just, you know, go through that journey with that of, yeah, old relationships or friendships and things like that that just don't feel right anymore, and do it from a really loving space. I feel like, that's, yeah, that feels strong for me at the moment. That's
Do you,
nothing really to do with what you just said, but what were you gonna say?
do you find that I've been noticing this theme in my life, and I think part of it is a big part of it is so much what we've been talking about with the way that we tend to connect. I mean, Ross says that the 59.6, like the 59.5, like sells sexuality, but the 59
Mhm,
sells intimacy.
mhm,
Sense that like how I interpret that is like I just carry this frequency everywhere that I go that basically says, I have half the channel, but everywhere I go that says like I'm open to explore intimacy with you. It's
mhm,
not so much that I'm like I want to explore you or I want you to
mhm,
explore me. On
mhm.
that, it's like
Yeah,
I'm down to explore this with you.
yeah. Mhm,
And if people step into my aura, they're gonna feel that at some level.
mhm,
And s- that's always been the case. And I used to have this experience, sometimes I still do, where like, one night stand archetype that we are, like people would
mhm,
step into my aura, like maybe for a night, and we would have this experience. And in the past, I would get attached. It was like
mhm,
maybe that's my soulmate because we just were able to like have this vibe together. And like
mhm,
clearly we both like, were activated through this connection, and it was really beautiful. It was really easy. It was really whatever. And then like the next day that person would leave, or that night the person would leave. And then I would be like, okay, when can we do that again?
mhm,
Never hear from the person again. Like I'll get ghosted.
mhm,
I think, looking back, it was that, the frequency that I kind of live in or that I exist in that's open to intimacy. Other people might step into my aura and that they might be influenced, by that energy to go there or to explore
mhm,
something, where for me it's just normal, but for them
mhm,
it's like it's sort of a novel experience, or it's unusual, and I don't know that because for me it's just kind of the space I live in.
mhm,
But I guess that wasn't so much what I wanted to ask you, but I'm wondering if I think because of that there are people all over the world that I think would say that they feel very close to me, or that we've had a very,
mm,
I'm not just talking sexually, like in every,
mhm,
yeah. Um, and a lot of those people I hardly ever talk to. Like, there's a lot of
mhm,
people, like, if I go into I used to travel a lot for work, right? So if I go into a city, there's people that would be like, "Oh, like Rocky's in town, like we're really close. We've had really close, intimate connection at some level." And sometimes I'm like, I don't even remember this person's name. But it's like, it does. I don't mean to say that in like a non-attached way or like a flippant way, but like, um, I'm so down to connect with whoever is like up to speed with the frequency that I'm about, and that whether that's for whether that's for a night or whether that's for a lifetime. Like if
mm,
with my partner, like I wouldn't have guessed we would have been together for going on 3 years now, but based on how we first connected, but like he's been able to sustain it, as have I, like the
mhm,
depth of connection that that started our relationship. And so it's like, oh, well, let's continue to explore that, and if we reach a point where that's not something you want to explore anymore at that level, or vice versa, then, we'll I guess go our separate ways. But do you find that as you move through the world, both as a kind of hermit, like there is this sort of autonomy, or this sense of aloneness almost, and at the same time, there's this capacity to deeply connect with many
Mm.
people. Um, but it's not so much about like, I'm going to deeply connect with you and only you. It's like,
Mm.
I don't know if I'm stating my question clearly, but it's more like that's what I feel. I wonder if you feel that way too. When you talk about certain people coming in and out of your life, is it less maybe about the people? It's more about the frequency.
Mm. Yeah. And as you were saying those things, like, yeah, for me, it's like I can meet someone completely, random or not, let's say. And so, for example, I met when I was in Barcelona, I was just sat in a cafe and just was sat next to this guy, and we ended up chatting. We were chatting for 3 hours. It was just in flow, like, and that was so impactful. And, I can have a connection with someone that I don't know on such a deep level that I've not had with connections that I've known for years.
Mhm.
So for me, that always feels really impactful, is like that initial sometimes, like it's like the penetration is like, like they're gonna open up, they're gonna go, because that's where I tend to go. And like if they're going there with me, it's like, okay, we're going here, like we're going down, 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 and open and all of that. So I guess sometimes for me, the challenge can come like almost sustaining that in some ways, because it's like you said, you've found it in your relationship, but like sometimes it's like that initial like is like, whoa, whoa, and then it's like, okay, then to sustain that. So I feel like sometimes I have a lot of, yeah, experiences of that kind of level. And then, yeah, they stay on as friends sometimes or not. But like a lot of the time, it really is that first initial like connection, I guess. Um, and then from that, yeah, the ones that do continue, they're like, that's where the dance comes in, and then you go down different avenues and like moving all around with it. But yeah, I definitely feel that I can, I don't know how to not do that in some ways. Like I find it's just so natural to me. But yet there's also, yeah, this habit part of me that is like, at times I just don't want to be with anyone, and I want to be like that with myself, and I want to be intimate with myself, and I love to do that with myself also, and
Mhm.
connect with myself deeply in that way, because I also love to do that too. So I definitely, yeah, have noticed. I think the more aware like I become, I just think it's so cool. It's like you can literally just meet someone you don't know and just get to this level in like an hour or 2 hours. To me, like, I love it. I love it.
I'm sure the same thing happens to you, and this has been the case for me before I learned design. I mean, it's been the case my whole life, where
Mhm.
especially, in the last 4 or 5 years, where, I'll meet somebody, have what feels to me like a normal, in air quotes, like normal conversation. And they'll say at some point, like, wow, we're really going there. Like I am like, or they'll apologize, like, I'm sorry for going so deep with you. Like, and I'm like, oh, we're just talking. This is, this to me is not like us really going anywhere. This is just kind of where I would prefer all of my
Mm,
conversations to exist.
mm,
Um, I think I heard this about like six line energy, that like we're really not interested in like small talk and things that are kind of
mm,
less than trivial. I mean, I think a lot of people are getting to that point, but like, you know, I want to talk about real shit. And it
mhm.
doesn't matter. Like, even, I'm like at this music festival this weekend, and I'm like, on the dance floor, like looking at people's charts. Like not across the board, but someone's like, okay, sure. and it's not even that I'm like, okay, now I'm going to do a reading. It's just more
No.
like, I realize even with the readings that I do, it's not even that I love giving people readings. I
Mm,
just like having a conversation I like having authentic conversations with people.
mm, mhm.
And I'm becoming like less and less tolerant to anything superficial to that. And I get it. Like, I'm still conditioned in many ways. Like, I still show up
Mhm.
with my mind's uh uh assumptions about things and ideas about how things are going to go. And
Mhm.
but I at least, like, I'm able to recognize it more.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful to be able to, like, I'm sure that the nature of our conversations and connections for any number of people would feel like very deep and profound and intimate. And to me, this just feels like completely normal talking. Um,
Yeah.
so I really appreciate that. I really appreciate you. Um, and it's like I mentioned before too, it's as somebody who is really enticed by and fascinated by and a little bit intimidated by emotional energy. Uh, it's so sweet to be able to kind of play with, in your wave to the extent that,
Mhm.
and yeah, just to get to learn together. I'm inclined to kind of wrap things up here just because I could
Mm.
talk to you for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah,
You know,
literally.
it's quite late where you are. Um,
Yeah.
do you feel complete?
Yeah, really. Yeah. Thank you so much. And yeah, it feels really good. It feels really good to just chat with you and hang out with you ultimately, and just do this because it just feels really natural. And I really enjoy it. And I really can't wait till we can actually be in physical aura and we can dance with these emotions.
I know. Yeah, I keep being reminded
uh,
of, like, the importance of play, especially for
uh-huh.
6 lines. It's so easy to wanna, you know, turn everything into something we can facilitate and help and heal and transform and share. And I'm really coming to recognize how important it is just to dance and sing and play and to get to do that with community. So, yes, I look forward to
Mm,
that very soon.
mhm.
Um, and thank you for the gift of your time and for your company and for the journey that you're on. I recognize that as a role model that you are. Your impact is far greater than even you probably recognize. Um, and so I
Mm,
I see you and I celebrate you, and I'll include some links of where people can find you if they're interested in learning more about the nature of the work that you do. It's incredibly, from what I see, diverse and poignant, and a reflection of the beautiful emotional role model manifesting generator spirit uh, you are. So thank you so much
mm.
for being on the podcast, Katie, and for hanging out.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, yeah, I feel the spirit and energy as well. That is a lot of playful energy, I think that's that gift of innocence and play. So yeah, I think it's really good to be doing lots of that and be in that energy. So
Sweet.
yeah,
Well,
thank you
look
so
forward
much. I'm so grateful.
Yes, my pleasure. And here's to lots of play and spirit-filled good
Yay.
times to come.
Mm.
All right. Lots
Amazing.
lots
Thank
of
you.
love to you. Talk soon.
Bye. Lots of love to you.